So the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation was established to take over the aid distribution into Gaza, replacing the former United Nations aid delivery mechanism post blocking or cutting off of the Gaza enclave. So there was no aid going in up until May 26th when we started operations, and the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation was established to lead that effort overall. So the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, I'm not sure in terms of what their actual status is in terms of a company or an NGO or a nonprofit. I don't know what they're classified as, but I know that their GHF is the overall lead for both of the contract mechanisms in Gaza. Well, sir, on May 13th, I received a phone call from the UG Solutions. UG Solutions is a subcontract for the security portion of this aid distribution method. They're stationed here in Davidson, North Carolina, where I live. I retired out of Fort Bragg, and they contacted me basically looking for experienced, recently retired or recently gotten out of the military, experienced combat veterans, special forces operations background. So they contacted me and explained the mission to me. Up until that point, till I got that phone call, I was not aware of what UG Solutions or the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation was. So I was interested, and I listened to what they had to say. Prior to that phone call on the 13th of May, sir, and remind you, I did retire on the 1st of January. I didn't retire years ago. Retirement through the 1st of January, and my last day in the Army was 1 March. I was very happy and content. My wife also served a career in the military. She is a retired career military officer. Between the two of us, we have 45 years of service. Between her and I, with my son, we've missed almost every birthday, every anniversary, every Christmas from the time that he was born to the majority of our marriage. And we're still married 17 years later. So I was very much comfortable and established in my retirement lifestyle. When I got the phone call, I felt that initially, because I didn't know much about the situation, when they first called me, I said, hey, I'd like to take a day to kind of do my own research and just kind of understand what it's all about. My answer is not no, but my answer is not yes. So I took the rest of the day, I believe it was a Wednesday, and I went through I started to read about GHF, not a lot out there. I started to read about Safe Reach Solutions, which is the prime contract, not a lot out there. I read a little bit about UG Solutions. UG Solutions had been the contract that sent contractors into Gaza in late January through March to control the Netzarim checkpoint once the ceasefire broke, or the ceasefire started, I should say, for the Palestinians that were allowed to then go back into Gaza City. So they had some credibility. It seemed like not many people had done contracts in Gaza. UGS did. So I figured that this would be an opportunity to link up with a company that had the experience. But I was more interested in the mission. I say this again, and I've said it again. I don't know Johnny Moore, the director or CEO or whatever the title is of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. But there is something that he said that I do agree with, that there's nothing more Christian than feeding people.
Yes.
And in terms of the sentiment of doing goodwill, feeding starving people, I served for the majority of my career after being an infantry officer and going to special forces. The special forces motto, as you see in the picture behind me of 1st Special Forces Group, is De Oppresso Liber, to free the oppressed. That is our motto. I just didn't have that on my uniform. I lived that. The civilian population in Gaza, politics aside, political views, religious positions aside, they are being oppressed. Food, water, education, life, dignity. And I wanted to be a part of going in to help in some way. So I have no political aspirations. I have no political leanings. I have no desire to write a book or before doing these interviews, I don't even have social media, and I've never really been out onto the internet. This is all very overwhelming for me. But my wife was a big factor behind me going on the record. My wife being, again, a retired military officer, we understand a lot of the same values. And she explained to me, she said, no one else can tell this story. No one else was there. Not only were you there, you were on the sites, and no one else saw it through the eyes of your experience. In the places you've been, in the things that you've done, the lens you look at this through is different than most people have. You need to go on the record. The American people need to know this. My motivations in this are patriotic. I want to inform the American people, my fellow citizens, of what's going on in Gaza, what our taxpayers' dollars are funding, and what American citizens on the ground are being faced with. America needs to know. So my initial perceptions of Gaza, just in terms of the physical aspect, is that I would just describe it as post-apocalyptic, something from the akin to Terminator 2, when the T-100s are walking through the destroyed landscape. It's human depravity. It's the oppression of dignity. It's the entire area, like for example, in the south in Rafah. I saw pictures of Rafah prior to the current war, and there were nice buildings, there were beach resorts, there were street lights and neighborhoods, and now it is leveled to the ground. There is not a building that stands, and the rubble is piled up. And as you drive through Rafah to one of our points, secure distribution site number 3 was in Rafah. So we would have to drive through the old southern Rafah corridor to get there, and all of the homes just in piles and rubble. And you can see, someone's couch that's hanging from a piece of rebar out of the second floor of a building, or a refrigerator smashed, or family photos that were on the wall that are now, shattered and broken. Like, these lives were just destroyed and taken. And that's the scene of Gaza. As you on the news, airdrops were conducted over the last 48 hours, and journalists were prohibited or encouraged not to take video or pictures of the overhead scenery. Because if the world sees that, I think the world would step back and pause to say, what are we doing? What have we become? Nothing I have seen in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Baghdad, in Mosul, Sadr City, all throughout Afghanistan, Syria, the southern Philippines, some places where there's dense populations. I have never witnessed anything as brutal, destructive, violent, and I would say that steps far over our international laws of how we persecute wars and how we engage in warfare. We've long departed from that standard, and America is a part of it. When I use the term war crimes, people think that, oh, you're just exaggerating. Well, I'm well versed in the protocols of the Geneva Convention, the protocols of the laws of armed conflict, the protocols of international humanitarian law, because I had to know those things as an officer leading men in combat. I didn't have the option. Ignorance was not an option. So
right.
Some of the things now I don't have it, memorized, but there's some pretty key elements in it that kind of stand out. Like, I don't know every word to the Constitution, but I can recite the preamble. So I know what some of them are in terms of what the don'ts are. One thing that struck me as concerning is that there are only 4 secure distribution sites in Gaza under the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. 4. Prior to the blockade and prior to the stopping of UN aid going in, there were 400. So out of the 4 sites that we have, only 4, 3 of them are co-located within 150 to 200 meters from each other, all of them in the far southwest corner of the enclave near the Egyptian border. It's nowhere near the people that need it. North of the Netzarim corridor, which bisects central Gaza from the north. In the north, you have Gaza City and Jabalia. That is where the population right now is the most vulnerable, where you have death, starvation. They're isolated. No aid is going into there, and there's no aid sites there. So prior to us deploying, as a prudent military planner mindset, I'm not in the Army anymore, but I didn't, I still carry the skills. I did a little bit what I would call operational preparation of the environment. I did my research, looked at Gaza, figured out the population, where the population centers were, what people ate, where they primarily lived and what they did. And I saw that, okay, well, the entire northern enclave of Gaza is cut off and isolated, and none of the sites that we've put in are in that area. So who are we providing aid to? So the 3 sites out of the 4 that are all the way down in the southern tip of the enclave, all of them are co-located or nearly located with an IDF combat unit. In that area is where the IDF is actively conducting, and this is not an opinion that anybody can refute. This is a fact. You can look it up. The IDF is currently conducting Operation Gideon's Chariots. It's an offensive operation. It's not a defensive. It's not a security. It's not an aid operation. It is an offensive combat operation. And they are conducting that in the south, where all 3 out of the 3 or 4 sites are located. We established secure distribution sites to deliver and distribute humanitarian aid, not only co-located with Israeli combat units, but located in an active combat zone. I can't make it clearer to the leadership there and to the lawyers that I've spoke with at GHF and UG Solutions that is a war crime, verbatim, out of the protocols of the Geneva Convention, which last time I checked, the United States was still a signatory to, and the laws of international laws and international humanitarian law. Clearly, there's no question about it. So to say that, well, it's okay in this one instance, it's not. It's not okay. So just from immediately being there, I realized that the planning and the coordination for this operation had either been done by people that had no idea, no concept of planning at that level to take into all the considerations that you have to take into an environment like this. You can't just go into a mission like this and say, oh, we'll just wing it. You have to consider the legal, the political, the environmental, the cultural, the military aspects. You have to consider every aspect when you go into planning something like this. And it was obvious that had not been done. So in my mind, I was like, this is either complete ignorance or it's intentional. They were intentionally put here. So I don't know the answer to that. Someday that's going to come out when the truth breaks and the international community looks and opens this box and starts digging into this nasty problem. The truth will come out. So it's my hope that we didn't do that intentionally, because that would not only make us war criminals, that would just make us evil. So, but the fact still remains, 3 of the 4 distribution sites are in an active combat zone. The 4th site up in central Gaza near the Nessarim corridor is co-located with an Israeli combat unit, a tank unit, mind you. A Merkava tank company is located adjacent to the distribution site. So if someone were to look through the annals of history and see how the United States government participated in the distribution of humanitarian aid to the people of Gaza, and they look at the maps and they're looking at everything, they're like, what was going on here? Why are you distributing humanitarian aid in the middle of a combat zone? It's a question that needs to be asked and needs to be answered, I think.